Building itself is beyond an art. There's a science attached to it.
Hello, our viewers out there. Welcome once again to another amazing segment on Novel TV Live. My name is Valentine Agogo, and we're here with architect Fred Lesinwa. You're welcome, sir.
Thank
All right.
you.
So let's move straight to the topic for today. I especially had to insist on reaching out to you because of the increasing rate of collapsed buildings in Nigeria. I know it happens in other parts of the world, but it's not something peculiar to Nigeria. But lately, it's been more frequent, and actually cause for concern. And a lot of people need to get a professional's point of view on what is actually responsible, what's happening, and things we put in place to avoid such scenarios reoccurring in the future, how to plan towards them and all that. So, as a professional, you're an architect, so would like to get an insight from you into these trending problems that are very peculiar with our country recently, starting from the previous ones, the building that collapsed with a lot of casualties, to the recent one that happened about 2 weeks ago around in Banana Island, even though we're yet to record any casualties, and it was under construction and all that. So what's your take on these incidents?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Val. Building collapse really has taken a lot of the headlines lately, and the most recent one happened just about 2 weeks ago
Yeah.
in Lagos. I think somewhere around First Avenue Road in Banana Island.
Island.
Yeah, just like every act in the physical space, accident is envisaged, and it's as a result of that some policies, some regulations, right, and some offices for our starters have been put in place to see how much it can be minimized, if possible, completely averted. For the case of building collapse in our space recently, quite unfortunate. It's really alarming because a lot of those incidences could obviously be avoided,
Avoided, yeah.
But unfortunately, it happens and it makes the headline. Minimal is done about it, and the cycle continues. What governments in our wisdom have tried to do by putting up some of these arms, right? Like there's an aspect of government that is called fiscal planning units.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called town planning.
Okay.
Yeah, so the town planning is actually a sector set up by government to help prevent these things before they get to sites and they happen. But it's quite unfortunate that some lots of human factors have really come into play
To boycott some of these policies.
in recent times heavily,
Wow.
and that has really brought us to where we are. If we start dissecting it, it comes from really different angles, because how a proper building construction process is supposed to run is from the drawing board down to the approval office, where the right due diligence is being done to make
Okay.
sure that the documents submitted vis-a-vis the information of the site would definitely fly before it's
Okay.
been stamped and approved to go live on ground. You know, in some cases of the collapsed building, we've seen situations where the town planning have done the due diligence,
Mhm.
have done approvals for a particular level of building, but the clients get to site,
And do
they
something.
use their discretion, they muscle whoever professional they have on site, and they build whatever they have want to build. In the case of what happened, I think it was 2 years ago around
Yeah, around
around
that Koyi area
yeah,
also.
Korea, not too
Mm.
far from Gerald. Yeah, what happened there was the client came with the proposition of installing more floors, but luckily and professional enough for the professional on ground, he rejected. And he wrote a
Okay.
disclaimer and exonerated himself completely from the project.
Oh,
So the client
interesting.
went ahead, did his bidding, and the havoc happened.
Wow.
Unfortunately, a lot of lives were lost, not to talk of
Yes.
property, that were lost in the process. So these are basically the challenges. And Lagos keeps being an instance. We have cases in even here in Delta States where we
Okay.
are, airing from. Same cases where clients make same proposition, It seems like the
Okay.
foundation was solidly done. Why don't we add an extra floor? I
Oh,
said, no problem.
wow.
When we're done with our bits, we'll put it on paper and we
Paper.
can let you do your bidding because it's completely unprofessional. A situation where you have to do that, there has to be a new level of reassessment and reevaluation before the consideration can now be factored in.
Okay.
So you have to check the structural integrity, the possibility of doing all of that. It's a whole lot of a different scheme entirely, different from what was initially proposed. So all of these factors,
Yeah.
come to being, come actually to play.
So is it that because we in this same Nigeria we have buildings that are 20 floors, 30 floors, and all that, and they're still standing. So is it that these guys want to use lesser quality of materials for the foundation? Because it seems like most of these things are foundation based. Is it strictly foundation based, or maybe management, or too many activities in the building? Because I'm not an architect, I'm not a professional, so I'm speaking from a layman's point of view. So one could, because not everyone who has money out there is learned enough to go through this process you just talked about, like going through the town planning, getting this approval, getting the professional to do this. But even some professionals might even go as well as can also encourage these guys who maybe have the money to spend in raising buildings and say, don't worry, just put two on top of it. It will generate you more extra profit in case it's for rent or for offices. All right. And the person bringing the money might not have gotten the right advice. So, what's the right approach to making sure that such a scenario is avoided? Or let me better put it this way: how would I, for instance, now without knowing you, let's say I don't know you, for instance, for consulting and all that, how would I make the right choice in making the right decision in raising a building to avoid such scenarios? And these mishaps, I think we can also extend it to fire outbreaks, like whether there are enough exits and the way the structure is, the electrical planning of the plan and all that. All right. How would I be able to avoid such a case in case I'm putting up a structure, because I want to raise something big or raise something small, or I know someone to raise something, and I don't have access to you. Maybe I meet someone else, because not all architects or professionals will be very honest with you to just tell you this is how you do this. This one will have side effects. After all, those buildings that are sinking, they have professionals on site. Agreed.
Well, I won't entirely agree. I won't say yes or no.
Okay.
Talking about how a lay and common man on the street should approach this construction work,
Yeah.
I think it still cuts across every other aspect. I mean, if you want to start driving today, something comes to mind, right? If you want to travel, for instance, you want to travel out of the shores of the country, something comes to mind. You know that you can't do it by yourself. You know
Yeah.
that obviously there should be someone out there somewhere, right, that can help take care of the processing. That's where you start looking for traveling agents.
Yeah.
Then you listen to them, you give them, in this case, your brief now is this is where I want to go to, this is how much I can afford for this, and this is what I'm looking at doing over there. Then with that, they can help package your travel arrangement. So does it apply with construction? Now you want to build, obviously it should first come to mind that they are professionals, right? That are in charge of putting your thoughts first on paper. And if you are able to make that interface with them, I believe they'll guide you with every other process. Now, professionals being on site where we have issues of collapse.
Yeah.
Well, I can't really sign off on one site. Yes, I don't have the details on one site where there was a professional. A professional is not just someone you find on site and calls himself an engineer. You should be able to pursue to the letter to find out if truly the person is a professional, especially in terms of certification, right? And being recognized by their professional body to operate, right, with that particular profession in Nigeria. So that is the only ground I would say, yes, a professional was on ground or a professional was not.
Okay, so there's a professional body that one naturally needs to be very careful to make sure you have.
Every profession has a body.
Okay. So the architectural body now has its own.
Yes. We have what we call Nigerian Institute of Architects.
Okay.
Right? Yes.
But there's some people out there who call themselves builders. And if you check their resume, they have a lot of structures to their names, and they are neither architects or any form of engineer, whether civil engineer or whatever the case may be. They just started as, some of them would even boldly hit their chest and say they started by being
Masons
masons
and
or laborers on site, carrying headbands and all those stuff.
Yeah.
So they hit their chest to say, so over the period of 15 years, they learned on the job. 20 years, they learned on the, and now look at that building. They started from scratch to completion. Look at that building from start to completion. Would you classify those, or even if you check their buildings and they look really clean and thorough, would you call those ones, would you classify them as professionals? Is it safe to work with such a person?
Obviously, they are not professionals, and they are one of the major disasters we have in the construction industry.
Okay.
Yes.
But they don't have any laws holding them.
There are laws, but it still boils down to our system. Our system is greatly bastardized, and I believe the planning authorities are being faced with two challenges.
Okay.
One is being overwhelmed, and the other is being compromised.
Okay. What do you mean?
And for those structures you say they look like they are good,
Hmm.
are you sure of their lifespan? Do you know that buildings have lifespan?
Okay.
Yes. Are you sure of their lifespan?
So it might
You see a
seem good
non-professional,
outside.
it does the work and it looks all
Nice,
good in
yeah.
appearance. But you'll be so surprised, even something as minimal as plaster can start flaking off in less than 1 year.
Hmm.
But the building did not collapse.
Okay. So no attention to details.
It really happens those way. It really happens those way because they don't know the details to look out for.
Okay.
Building itself is beyond an art. There's a science attached to it.
Okay.
Yes. So you have to put the science vis-a-vis the art before putting a life on ground. So I believe that's where the challenge really comes. Take an instance, the building collapse that happened opposite City Complex some time ago.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a mat,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But in appearance, the business owner felt it was solid enough to do whatever he wanted to do with it.
Yes. to
And
load.
unfortunately, he overloaded the structure.
Yes.
And
And
it
take
came
him
down.
down.
So that's it. So for something like that, if he had consulted a professional,
Okay.
right, the professional would have been able to advise. You don't load this, but if you want to do that, this and this are the things we need to put in place for extra fortify the structure. So those really are the challenges.
Are there policies in place, laws, possible punishment for offenders and all that in this society of architects now, for instance, or laws in place for these kind of offenders?
Every professional within the building industry, right, especially those that have dealings with the integrity of the building, the architect, the structural person, even the QS, I believe so, their bodies have penalties.
Okay.
Right, for unprofessionalism. And one of the first major things after the Board of Inquiry has come back with their submission is to withdraw your license to practice.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and once that is done, you absolutely have no right to practice.
For life?
Yes. But another thing we should ask also is, does these bodies have the necessary infrastructure and resources
to carry it out,
to be sure that you're not practicing silently somewhere? That is another challenge to be resolved another day. But officially, you are disbanded, your license is withdrawn, just like you also have in medical practice and the rest. So when that is done,
no jail terms.
The law takes its course.
Okay.
Yes, the law takes its course.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
So,
interesting. Any final advice you want to give to people out there? Maybe someone who's watching right now and wants to get one or two professional opinions or advice from you about the approach. You've already said a lot about what to do, the steps to take and all that. Maybe just one final word for someone out there concerning all we've been talking about.
Okay, my advice to my people out there is building is an investment, right? Many times they get to outlive us. So if we're doing something that's long term, my advice is that we do it right, you know, and as much as possible, cut it down on trying to cut corners, because that's another challenge we really have out there. And if we're able to put this in play, our society will be void of building collapse. I can guarantee you of that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Architect Fred Lesinwa. He has said a lot. So I like the conclusion. If we can have this put in play, we would avoid or avert a lot of these crises and incidents and casualties that are reeling into our society lately because of building collapse and other errors in buildings. All right. And if you listen very carefully, for the fact that your building looks nice does not mean that it's actually professionally done, professionally built. There are still some errors. And one major thing I took from what you said today is the fact that building is beyond the art. There's a science that goes with the art. So when these two come together, that is when your structure has a professional touch. So whatever you're doing, wherever you are, whatever plans you have, whatever intentions you have on raising buildings, setting up structures for businesses, for personal use and everything, always ensure you don't just get an architect or an engineer, but get the one that is licensed, that has the science in collaboration with the art. I think that's what I'll leave us with. So until next time, I remain Valentine Agogo, and on set with me today was architect Fred Lesinwa. Please don't forget to like, share, drop your comments on everything we talked about today, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.